She built a $4.2 billion company by reading people faster than they could read themselves. She had never been wrong about who would fold. She was wrong about him. This is the story of a bet she made at midnight, about a man who had lost everything, and what happened when he quietly refused to lose the one thing that mattered most. Before we continue, please tell us in the comments section where you're watching this video from so we can know how far our stories reach. And also subscribe to the channel to help us grow and get to our 500 subscribers milestone. The lobby of Cloutier Financial Tower was designed to make people feel small. Megan Cloutier had approved every detail personally. The 40-foot ceilings, the white marble that swallowed sound, the lighting that stripped color and left faces looking anonymous and replaceable. At 11:47 on the Wednesday night, the lobby held two people. One owned the building. The other one was protecting it. Marshall Ramirez stood at the main security post, reviewing the overnight access log. 34 years old, broad-shouldered, dark brown skin under hard fluorescent light. His uniform was pressed, his shoes were clean, his face gave nothing away. Not fatigue, not frustration, not the weight of a life that had been torn apart and rebuilt in silence. He did not look up when she walked in. This stopped Megan Cloutier in the middle of the lobby. Everyone else in this building registered her presence within seconds. Spines straightened, voices softened, eyes went careful and deliberate. The performance of people who had just remembered who signed their checks. Marshall was logging a maintenance request. She crossed to the desk. "I need access to the 32nd floor." After-hours access requires badge verification and supervisor authorization for levels 30 and above. He still had not looked up. "Badge?" She held out her card. He scanned it without checking her face first. Most people check the face before the badge. He checked the badge. "Ms. Cloutier, 32nd is clear." He looked up for the first time. His eyes were dark brown and level. Not deferential, not challenging, just present. "Elevator bank B. Keycard activates directly." "Thank you." He had already returned to the log. She walked toward the elevator. 3 steps, then stopped. He was still working, not watching her go, not checking to see if she had noticed his efficiency, not performing anything. Megan Cloutier had spent 15 years reading people. Thousands of faces, thousands of hesitations. She had built her company on the speed of that assessment. She could not read this man. She went upstairs. But she did not stop thinking about him. 3 years before that night, Marshall Ramirez had been a senior partner at one of the top corporate litigation firms in the city. Not working toward it, already there. He had argued cases that rewrote how regulators interpreted industry risk. He had been good at it the way surgeons are good. Not from pride, from evidence. And then his partner, John McCauley, fabricated evidence against him. One case, one carefully constructed lie. 4 months of disbarment proceedings. By the time Marshall had gathered enough proof to fight back, the legal fees had consumed everything. His savings, his car, his apartment. His daughter was 4 years old. Her name was Sarah Anderson. Her mother was gone. And Marshall Ramirez, former senior partner, former person on a certain trajectory, did the only thing a man with no leverage can do. He rebuilt from whatever was available. He found an apartment in a good school district. He found work. He filed the appeals that would take years to resolve. He kept moving forward, even when forward looked nothing like it used to. Now he was 34. Sarah was 8. She had an eye condition her doctor called progressive but manageable, which meant treatable, which meant expensive, which meant Marshall needed exactly the kind of insurance that Cloutier Financial's benefits package provided. That was why he had applied for this specific job. Not because he had given up, because Sarah needed stable coverage more than he needed his pride. He was doing this job until he could do something else. He was always doing this until he could do something else. Megan returned at 1:15 in the morning. She told herself she had forgotten a document on the 32nd floor. She had not forgotten a document. She found Marshall reviewing camera feeds with the same unhurried focus he had given the access log 2 hours before. She set her badge on the desk before he asked. He scanned it anyway. She sat in the waiting area. He glanced at her once, then returned to the monitors. 15 minutes passed. "What made you choose security work?" she asked. A short pause. Not hesitation, calculation. The kind that assesses how much of a door to open. It required judgment rather than performance. She looked at him. Most people would say the opposite. Most people would be making the wrong observation. Something shifted in the room. Not hostility, recognition. Two people who thought in similar ways, suddenly in the same space. "You read people," she said. "It's part of the work." "What do you read in me?" A longer pause. Honest quiet. The kind that requires more care than convenience. "Someone who built something real," he said, "and who hasn't decided yet whether what it cost her was worth it." Megan looked at him steadily. "That's specific." "You asked." She almost smiled. She couldn't remember the last time that happened in this building without an agenda attached. She stood, picked up her coat. "What's your name?" "Marshall Ramirez." She nodded once. The nod she reserved for things she intended to remember. Then she walked out to her waiting car. Her COO, Walter Brown, was waiting inside. 11 years with her. He read her face the way she read financials. Fast, without sentiment. "Who is that?" he asked. "Night security." She looked out the window. "He's interesting." "Interesting how?" "He didn't fold when I talked to him." Walter considered this. Then, with the ease of someone who had watched people be wrong in every direction, he said, "Men like that fold when the real pressure comes." Megan turned to look at him. Her expression sharpened into the focus she used before decisions. Does he? Not a question. 2 nights later, a young man named John Latch appeared at post 1. Mid-20s. The specific confidence of someone who had never needed to earn access to anything. He set a visitor badge on the desk without being asked. 31st floor, executive files. Walter Brown authorized it. Marshall checked the visitor log. The badge number was valid. The clearance was not. Your credential authorizes floors 1 through 10. 31st requires permanent staff authorization. Mr. Brown arranged it directly. If he authorized it, it would be in the system. Marshall held his gaze. It isn't. John Latch's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone, placed a call. Marshall heard it connect straight to voicemail from across the desk. He waited. "I'm going to need you to step aside," John Latch said. "This is above your pay grade. This post is my responsibility." Marshall's voice did not change. Not its volume, not its tone. The voice of someone who had already decided how this ended. "Without verified authorization, I can't grant access to restricted floors. That's not judgment, that's protocol." 5 seconds of silence. Then John Latch walked to the waiting area and sat down. And Marshall could tell, from the way he sat, the tight and contained energy of someone suppressing a reaction, that this had been a test. 40 minutes later, Megan Cloutier walked through the front doors, Walter Brown beside her. Watching Marshall the way a scientist watches a result he expected, but didn't quite believe. "Mr. Ramirez," Megan said. "Miss Cloutier?" She stopped at the desk. "He told you my name." "Yes." "And you still held the post." "The protocol doesn't have a name exception." She was quiet. Walter shifted his weight. The specific movement of a man who had just been proved wrong about something he was confident about. "What do you know about why that protocol exists?" she asked. "The 31st floor holds active merger documentation for 3 ongoing acquisitions. Unauthorized access during regulatory review creates disclosure liability under SEC Rule 13D. The access log is a legal record. If it showed I granted entry without verification, the company carries exposure that the acquisition itself couldn't offset." Silence. The kind that happens when a room realizes it has been miscalibrated. Megan studied him. Something had changed in her expression. Not warmth. Not yet. The activation of a particular kind of attention. "You have legal knowledge." "I read." "Who are you, Mr. Ramirez?" "Night security. Post 1. She looked at him the way she looked at documents she was about to have her attorneys examine. "Tomorrow night," she said, "I'd like to speak with you." Not a command, not quite an invitation. An expectation that understood it could be declined. "I'll be here," Marshall said. He always was. And that, though neither of them knew it yet, was the answer to a question she hadn't learned to ask. She came back, the next night, and the night after that. Not because she planned it, because she was in the building at those hours, and there was something in the lobby that did not exist anywhere else in her life. They talked. She asked about the city. Which blocks had survived, which hadn't. Why certain streets still worked the way they did. He knew these things the way people know what they have actually lived in. She told him about a board vote she had lost, a strategy she had abandoned. Not because she wanted advice, because she was exhausted from performing invincibility for rooms full of people watching for the first sign of fracture. He listened the way he monitored the camera feeds, completely, without building his response while she was still speaking. On the 5th night, she asked the question she had been circling. "What were you before this?" He told her. Attorney, senior partner, a case that uncovered something John Macaulay did not want uncovered. 4 months of disbarment proceedings built on fabricated evidence. The appeals still moving. He said it without performance. The same tone he used for access protocols and camera logs. Just information, arranged in order. Megan listened without expression. "You have documentation," she said. "Everything." "Your appeal should have moved faster." "The court moves when it moves." She was quiet. "I know 3 ethics board members personally." "I know." He looked at her steadily. "That's not why I told you." "Why did you tell me?" "Because you asked, and because someone who built what you built deserves to know who they're actually talking to." She stood to leave. "My daughter's name is Sarah," he said. She stopped. "She's 8. She has a progressive eye condition. Treatable, but expensive. Cloutier Financial's benefits package covers the monitoring she needs. That's why I applied for this specific post." He said it without apology, without expectation. Just fact, offered into open air. "I thought you should know that too." Megan turned. He was looking at her the same way he looked at everything. Not vulnerable, not calculating, present. She did not speak for a long moment. "What does she want to be?" she asked. Something shifted in his face. Not surprise, the registering of an unexpected frequency. An architect. She draws buildings on every piece of paper she finds. Megan nodded. Not the nod for things to remember, the nod for things to act on. She left. But something she had told herself about the kind of people who folded and the kind of people who didn't was already coming apart quietly in the back of her mind. 3 days later, at 2:47 in the morning, everything changed. Marshall saw it first. The secondary monitor. A pattern of micro-access requests cycling through a maintenance vendor terminal on the 14th floor. Individually, each one looked like a routine diagnostic, but the sequencing was wrong. He had spent 4 years doing electronic discovery review. He knew what systematic file extraction looked like. Someone was pulling merger documentation from the Ashford Holdings acquisition. An $800 million deal, still under active regulatory review. He was on his radio before the building alarm triggered. He reached the 14th floor in 90 seconds. A man in a building services uniform sat at the vendor terminal, with his hands still moving. His name was Trott. He was not in the building services log. Marshall had checked at shift start. He always checked. Step away from the terminal. Trott looked up, made a calculation, ran. 4 minutes, 2 floors. Marshall was bigger and faster, and had developed the physical awareness of someone responsible for a space. He held Trott at the 12th floor stairwell exit until Brenda Jones, the head of security, arrived. Then 2 officers, who had been monitoring Cloutier Financial's network as part of an ongoing corporate espionage investigation. Marshall gave his account without embellishment. He cited the federal securities regulation governing disclosure requirements during active merger review. He explained why the attempted extraction constituted a federal offense. He cited it from memory, precisely, with context. Brenda Jones looked at him with an expression that had stopped being professional about 45 seconds into the account. Megan Cloutier arrived at 3:30 in the morning, coat over pajamas, Walter beside her. She stood in the lobby with the police report in her hand and looked at Marshall Ramirez standing at post 1, as though the last 3 hours were a shift he had already logged and set aside. She read the section he had dictated. "You detained the suspect," she said, "until law enforcement arrived. You cited the securities violation. It was relevant. Brenda Jones said you gave case law. The officers needed context for the arrest warrant." Megan set the report on the desk. She was quiet for a long time. The specific quiet of someone proved wrong about something they considered settled. "You prevented an $800 million acquisition from being compromised," she said. He waited. "While working the overnight security shift." "I was doing my job." "You were doing considerably more than your job." Her voice had changed. The boardroom quality was gone. What was left was something simpler, more direct. Marshall. First time she had used his name. "There are records I accessed this week," she said. "Your disbarment file, the original case documentation. I had 2 attorneys reviewing it since yesterday morning." He was still. Not the stillness of anticipation, the stillness of a man who had been carrying something for a long time, not yet ready to set it down in case it wasn't really being offered. "The fabrication in your file is visible to anyone looking carefully. John McCauley was not careful enough." "What are you telling me?" he said. "I've spoken to 2 ethics board members. The documentation you have, combined with what my attorneys found independently, is enough to reopen your disbarment case under expedited review." She paused. Cloutier Financial is also retaining outside legal counsel for the securities case that follows tonight's arrest. The lead attorney position hasn't been filled. The lobby was very quiet. "I'm a disbarred attorney working security," he said. "You're an attorney disbarred on fabricated evidence? Whose case is about to be reopened? Who stopped a federal crime tonight and correctly identified the legal framework before the arresting officers arrived?" Her voice was even, no performance. "Tell me which one of those things defines you, or I'll decide." He looked at her. She looked back. For the first time since she had walked into this lobby months ago, Megan Cloutier was not reading a room, not managing a situation, not constructing anything. She was standing at a security desk at 3:30 in the morning, in her coat over her pajamas, looking at a man who had been assigned a value far beneath his actual worth and had not bent under that assignment. Not once. Not on any night she had observed him. "I have conditions," he said. She almost smiled. "I expected you would. The reinstatement moves on the ethics board's timeline. I won't take any role until it's confirmed." "Agreed. Sarah doesn't change my conditions. She's not a negotiating point." "I know. I want the engagement agreement in writing before I take any steps. Full scope. It's already drafted, quietly. I had it started 2 days ago." He was still for a moment. Then, "You made a bet." Her expression shifted, small, almost invisible. "Walter told you." "Walter talks to overnight staff about things he assumes won't go anywhere." The corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. "He sent John Latch himself." "He bet you'd fold," she said. "Most people do." "Why didn't you?" He was quiet, the quiet before something true, not something prepared. "Because my daughter draws buildings on every piece of paper she can find," he said. "She is going to run out of paper before she runs out of buildings to draw, and I am not going to be the reason that stops." The lobby held them both in silence. Outside the glass walls, the city was beginning its slow adjustment toward morning. Not light yet, something between, the deep dark pulling back. The first gray suggestion at the edge of the sky. Megan did not look away. "There's a photograph I've carried since I was 22, she said. "Taken the year my father died. The year I took over a company everyone expected me to lose." She paused. "It's the last photo where I look like someone who still believed she was allowed to want things. Not just to achieve them, want them." He listened. "I stopped carrying it 5 years ago. I stopped recognizing the person in it." She held his gaze. 3 nights ago, I put it back. The simplicity of it, no strategy, no performance, just honest, settled between them. "Sarah wants to build libraries," he said. "Libraries." "She says they're the only buildings that are already full of something worth protecting, before the first person walks in." He paused. "I told her that was the best reason to build anything I'd ever heard." "Monday morning," Megan said. 9 in the morning, my office. I'll be there." She picked up her coat. "Ms. Cloutier?" She stopped. He was looking at her from post 1, the same steady attention he had given her the first night she walked in. The night she had been bothered, without knowing quite why, by the fact that he wasn't watching her go. "Thank you," he said, "for looking at the record." She looked at him. "Thank you," she said, "for keeping yours clean." The door closed. Marshall stood in the lobby, the marble silent around him, the monitors glowing. Outside, the city moving through its slow, indifferent transformation from night into almost morning. He reached into his pocket. His phone's wallpaper, Sarah at 6 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a ruler and a pencil and a serious expression, drawing a building with exactly the same height on both sides. He looked at it for a moment. Then he put the phone back in his pocket and returned to the access log. 2 more hours on shift. He would be here until the end of it. He always was. Here is what no one in that lobby understood at 3:44 in the morning. Not the arrest, not the legal documents, not even the offer, which was real and would stand and would change 2 lives in ways still invisible at this particular hour. What had actually happened was simpler. A woman who had spent 15 years becoming too important to need anything stood in her own lobby, in a coat over her pajamas, at 3:30 in the morning. A man who had spent 3 years being assigned a worth far below his own looked up when she walked in, and did not adjust his posture. Neither of them performed anything for the other. Because here is what certain rooms will never tell you. They will show you the marble, the lighting, the name above the door. They will show you who owns the building and who guards it. What they will not show you is what a person actually cost. What it cost to be stripped of everything you built on a lie and keep showing up anyway. What it cost to wear a uniform you did not plan to wear, for a daughter whose eyes are slowly changing because she needs you to keep going more than you need the world to see who you really are. And what it means when someone finally looks at all of that, every piece of it, and decides that none of it has reduced the value of the person carrying it. That is not a business decision. That is not a comeback story. That is just 2 people, finally, at 3:44 in the morning, in a lobby built to make people feel small, seeing each other clearly, and refusing to look away. We appreciate you listening to the end. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this, and tell us in the comments what you think should happen next.